our people going back, I'm talking about particularly black people, the lack of local voting empowerment has been an issue, and that's going all the way back since slavery, since the Reconstruction. We have always had only national representation because black codes was state and local clamps on black people, and that went on for hundreds of years. Every act, every voting rights act, all came from the national government. So we never was able to comprehend the fact that we runs 1,000 municipalities that the demographics is all black, and we never ever capitalize off that voting power and that municipal power where we can elect officials that directly affects our life. And that's that thought. I mean, that point is being missed in the black community. I wanted to touch on something y'all said about the school system and the emergency manager, because when Granholm did put the emergency, they also did something to the school system where they tricked the voters to enact to enhance security in the schools. And when the voters thought that they was enhancing security, they took millions of dollars out the fund and they took an old tore down school and turned it into a police force for the Detroit Public School Police Department with their own chief of police, their own assistant chief, their own inspectors, their own K-9 unit, and this all funded from $10.3 million out the general fund of the school. This going on every year. When you got a failing school system, that precinct look better than most of the schools that they built. I'm talking about it don't got no water problems, it don't got no structure problems, it's state of the art. And this is a precinct straight up funded. So this is the mentality of our elected officials and what they think about people. A place to incarcerate them is more important than a place to school them and to educate them. And that was enacted under the emergency manager as well. But that's the major problem, that we don't have the connection with local voting in our community. Once we can grasp that, we can be better off as a people.
I just wanted to say, first of all, I was around the emergency manager takeover back in 2011. We, the voters, this was put up to a vote, and 53% of Michiganders voted against emergency management because they saw it was a takeover of their communities, charter municipalities, or village township. Michigan is made of these municipalities, certain villages where there is a certain way of it's violation of the Home Rules Act, City Act. It's also violation of city charters across the state of Michigan. We voted no on those grounds, and the governor Rick Snyder, went back and pulled the legislator to come back to the table, revise Public Act 4, that is now 436, that is appropriated with a budget, and it cannot be repealed by the citizens of Michigan. Well, when that law took place, while we were unwrapping our presents at Christmas 2012, April 4th, 2013 was when Kevin Orr got here to the city of Detroit as our emergency manager. That man was disrespectful. He was not courteous to the citizens. His first meeting was full of people, and he threatens the community saying, oh, he's supposed to know our history. He'll cut our throats and leave us bloody in the middle of the street with the best of them. That was a clear threat. And then when he went to butcher the unions, he went to butcher the pensions, he's also outsourcing, he's selling things. He threatened to sell our art museum that attracts the biggest attractions in this country, the Detroit Institute of Arts. He cut the pensioners, got an offer of $195 million to give to the pensioners for them to split. He also gave away our biggest assets to corporate philanderers and folks that should be in jail. Belle Isle is our biggest resource. He stole that, put it in a contract, and then packaged it up to where the legislature voted on for 30 years. It was originally for 10. They wanted 99 years. We said no. The water department, our biggest asset, we got that back from Kevin Orr after the shutoffs had happened. Now, 2 days before he announced the mass shutoffs that would devastate this city, he announced privatization bids for privatization that enticed Veolia Water to submit their proposals, and they are the ones that now have the contract.
For you paying attention at home, Veolia Water was one of those involved with the Flint water crisis.
Yes, they were. And they're the main one that's here. They did a plan of adjustment back in 2013 to send recommendations of if the Detroit water and sewerage system goes private, it will be ran under this model. That model has not worked. It has not worked in also places around the world. The biggest takeaway from this is that an emergency manager is almost akin to a man coming into your home, having sex with your partner or your wife or whomever, and then forcing you to watch, taking over your finances, telling you to go make him something to eat. And you sitting here now, defenders of democracy are not going to let an outsider come into their city to take over what God knows what without the citizens' input and approval. Now, this is what happened to Detroit. They feel the state of Michigan officials, and though it was federally arbitrated, this bankruptcy that happened in 2014, June 2014, we were bankrupt, and it was made headline news all across the world. The Motown Sound, the place that put the world on wheels, the arsenal of democracy, is now bankrupt. We have no money. And the memorandum of understanding was to say in the bankruptcy court, this is what goes on with all of our assets, our water. We have been leased by the suburbs to the tune of $50 million for our water system when it's $800 billion to operate and maintain. We just got a report in that says that the Great Lakes Regional Water Authority was illegally propped up, and it was also projected to make the bill pass. So while the bankers got bailed out, we got sold out. That's basically what it is. Emergency management for whom? It's not for the citizens, because this isn't our fault. It's now our fight because it's not anything that we would have done. We have elected officials in power that are spineless, that do not stand up for the will of the people. When Joanna and I come down to these city council meetings, and Ramon, they want to look at us as if we crazy, if we're disruptors because we ask certain questions, because we highlighted certain things that we need clarification. Then they go in the back rooms and talk about whatever it is and come back and say we made a decision.
I just wanted to just talk about a little bit about the history of the city of Detroit. This is a predominantly black city, just like Flint. We had a 1967 we call it rebellion, but other people would call it a race riot. Okay, what happened is that a lot of Caucasian people move out of the city. And so it's always been this thing that we're going to take Detroit back from the black people. And we had a mayor by the name of Coleman A. Young who was very adamant about keeping Detroit predominantly black because of the racist suburbs, pretty much. Brooke Patterson and Brooke Patterson, they made it very clear if we go across 8 Mile, this street called 8 Mile, that we'll be harassed, even killed. So it was really bad, and as a little girl, we was always taught, don't go across 8 Mile, or you're going to get harassed. So I think that after Coleman A. Young died, I think he put stuff in place. And then we had another mayor who basically wanted to, we call sell out to the white folks, and created policies that didn't benefit the city of Detroit resident at all, but benefited the suburbs, to the point where all our jobs was basically given out to the suburbs. And even to this day, 70% of the jobs downtown. Now, matter of fact, 90% of the jobs downtown. 90% of the jobs downtown is not held by Detroit. It's not Detroit residents. All of them is outside of the city of Detroit. And 70% of everybody living in the city got to drive miles away just to make $10 $10 an hour. So this was a well-strategic plan to not only reduce the population of the city of Detroit because it was predominantly black, but to make sure we would never regain any real power or have the control over the so-called resources of the city of Detroit. And we had particularly our own elected official, which predominantly was black, that helped orchestrate this, and so when you think about the city of Detroit, I just want people to understand that a lot of the situations that happened to the city of Detroit, it was out of our hand. It was a lot of that stuff was in the state of Michigan has targeted every predominantly black city in the whole entire state, from Detroit to Flint to Benton Harbor, Pontiac, Highland Park, you name it, all had financial managers. But the cooperation from our own elected people who are predominantly black assisted in destroying their own culture and people. And so I just want people to understand that we are resilient people. We've been fighting on the ground, but we also can stop this gentrification process in the city of Detroit, and we can have a redevelopment of the city and without displacement.
The problem with the GM is that the city of Detroit still has eminent domain over that land, and God knows what they can pull. And that's why we're saying we want GM plant to stay. We want those workers to be given, a reprieve. First of all, GM should not be cutting any jobs that they've just gotten any money. Don't run that game to me that we don't have no money and we're cutting off workers at the blue collar level. The car companies here have already been compromised. The dream of working in a factory and having the piece of the American dream is no longer. They're even cutting wages at 14 to 30 something an hour working on the plants. So we don't have any benefits. And the workers there are struggling. They're struggling. They cashed in their 401ks. They have literally nothing left to show for it. And you're going to cut their jobs, send them overseas. What are we going to do with that will kill the economy of Detroit. We won't have any tax base because people will have to move out to find other jobs and other opportunities, and then opens the right door to gentrification because they will take that land, try to come up with some name or some hipster type. It just makes no sense to act so rash as to cut jobs without creating a succession plan to get those workers into other jobs within GM.
I wanted to say something. I want to touch on gentrification here in Detroit. The major component when we're talking about what's happening in Detroit is that they're using our resources in order to do what they're doing. And I'm going to give you an example. Most of the federal money that's coming in to help with housing, Section 8, they're taking it, mixing it with private developers, shutting down public subsidized housing, and then they mixing them. I'm going to give you an example. When they closed a housing project, when they opened it, it was 2,100 units. When they got down to displacing those people, it was only 200 low-income units, and the rest of the units became mixed income. So they use HUD funding, which the basis of that funding is poverty. That's the same with everything they did on how they carved up Detroit over the last 5 years. They took federal funds coming in from the hardest hit funds, and they took them, they drawed up areas that they wanted to gentrify first. And they target those areas for what they call blight removal, which they hid under demolition. Okay, and they tore down partials in those areas with no intentions on building in those areas. So they carved them up and they used the funds. Those funds was meant to help our people that was failing with their mortgages. Then none of the city council members fight on behalf to help nobody with their failing mortgage. They went further, the city council. They enacted a law to give themselves half off the property that the people had lost here, and gave their family members half off the property. They immediate family gave all contract half off the property that was taken from people under nuisance abatement, which is the same thing as eminent domain, which is what they've been using here. And not only that, under all the federal funds. So the major component is they using the things that was meant to help us in order to hurt us.
I want to talk about, because I did a lot of work around the housing crisis in the city of Detroit. We lost over 100,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and 2011, the old Treasury before Eric Chabris foreclosed on 100,000 people homes in 1 year, making us the first American city that ever foreclosed on that many homes at one time. And what's so sad about it is that 70% of those homeowners was actually qualified to get their taxes exempt because they was too poor to pay for them. And now ACLU has sued the city of Detroit and won a lawsuit based upon the fact that they intentionally foreclosed on these people's homes. And when President Barack Obama sent the federal fund, which is the hardest hit fund, the city of Detroit was sent hundreds of millions of dollars to assist in this crisis. And our own governor, Snyder, and our mayor, Mike Duggan, intentionally went to the United States government, to the Department of Treasury, and asked, can they divert that money to remove blight in our community? And then our mayor had given all the contracts to demolish these properties to predominantly white construction companies, to the tune where I can show you these big, huge demolition holes in the city of Detroit. That's all in the city of Detroit. That basically we got over 700 of these holes in the city of Detroit that I've been trying to get filled in the city for months now, and that is totally dangerous to our community and our public and everything. And I gotta find it, but I could just show you all these demolition holes that we have in the city of Detroit. And this fraud, this plain out corruption, this is totally illegal. But this happens when you don't have citizens that is willing to vote these people out. And they have this fear tactic that they do with our residents. They give us a little crumbs to the elderly people. We call it the chicken dinners. You know, they'll go to the nursing homes and they give out little chicken dinners, and then, oh, vote for me, oh, vote for me. And since only we got 400,000 registered voters and only 20% of them actually vote, so they able to win whole elections in districts that got 100,000 people with 10,000 votes. You know, small percentage of voters that's voting. And so one of our major goals, outside of me being the Detroit Charter Commission, is that I'm actually rewriting the City of Detroit Charter, which is our local constitution, so we can lay the framework in a way what is actually benefiting the residents of the City of Detroit. But on top of that, actually creating a campaign to increase the amount of people to vote between the ages of 18 and 35 and an election that we about to have in 2021.